Welcome to the deep dive.
Yeah.
Today, we're going to be exploring something kind of interesting. It's Get Inspired. It's this YouTube channel all about like personal development.
Okay.
And they have this motivational video, and it features Dr. Joe Dispenza, this neuroscientist. And he's suggesting that like the way we talk to ourselves can actually like shape the reality we experience.
Oh, wow. That's really interesting.
Yeah.
It's almost like our self-talk is like a blueprint.
Okay.
And our brains are constantly like working to build our lives like based on that blueprint.
Okay, but how does that even like work?
Right.
Like I get positive thinking is good, but how can just like talking to myself change things?
Yeah, well, that's where things get really fascinating.
Okay.
The video really emphasizes that like our brains don't always clearly distinguish between what we vividly imagine and what's actually happening in the real world.
So it's not just about saying I'm happy over and over.
Right.
It's about really like feeling it and picturing it.
Yeah.
Almost like creating a movie in my head.
Exactly like the video talks about creating a whole mental world where you're already living the life that you want.
Wow.
And suggests that consistently doing this can actually like make those positive outcomes more likely.
That's kind of mind-blowing.
Yeah.
But if our brains are so easily influenced, doesn't that mean that like negative self-talk can also shape our reality? But in like a bad way?
Unfortunately, yes.
Huh?
Think about it this way. Imagine someone who constantly tells themselves, I'm not good enough. What do you think their life might look like?
Probably filled with a lot of self-doubt and missed opportunities.
Yeah.
Right? Because they're almost like looking for proof that they're not good enough.
Exactly. So the key is to become aware of our self-talk and make a conscious effort to shift it from the negative to the positive. And the video gives some really practical tips on how to do that.
Like, well, I'm all ears.
Well, one of the things Dr. Dispenza emphasizes is the power of I am statements.
Yeah.
Have you heard about these before?
I've heard of them before.
Yeah.
But they always seemed a little too woo-woo for me.
I totally get it.
Yeah.
But the video explains it in a way that makes a lot of sense.
Okay.
Think of it this way. Those two little words, I am, are like a declaration to your brain about who you are and what you're capable of.
So if I say, I am confident, even if I don't feel that way right now,
Right.
my brain starts to believe it.
Exactly. And the more you repeat it and really embody that feeling of confidence, the more those neural pathways in your brain associated with confidence get strengthened.
Wait, neural pathways. Is that where the science comes in?
Absolutely. The video briefly mentions neuroplasticity, which basically means that our brains are constantly changing and adapting based on our experiences and even our thoughts.
Okay.
It's like our brains are constantly rewiring themselves.
Okay, so for those of us who aren't neuroscientists, can you explain neuroplasticity in like simpler terms?
Yeah, so think of your brain as a giant forest with lots of paths. Every time you think or do something, you're walking down one of those paths, and the more you walk down a certain path, the more defined and clear it becomes.
So the more I repeat a positive I am statement, the more I'm creating a clear path for my brain to follow towards that belief.
Precisely. And over time, those positive paths become so strong that it becomes easier and more natural to think and act in alignment with them.
That makes so much sense.
Yeah.
It's like training your brain. Kind of like how you train a muscle.
Exactly. And the video emphasizes that it's not about being perfect or never having negative thoughts. It's about catching those negative thoughts and consciously choosing to replace them with something more empowering.
Okay, so let's say I'm someone who constantly tells myself, I can't do this. What's a more empowering way to reframe that?
The video suggests a really great technique. Instead of saying, I can't, ask yourself, how can I?
Right.
It's a subtle shift, but it changes your focus from limitations to possibilities.
So instead of shutting myself down, I'm challenging myself to find a solution.
Right.
I like that.
And the video gives other examples like swapping, this is too difficult for I'm learning and growing from this.
Yeah, it's like changing the script in my head, right? Instead of playing the victim, I'm choosing to be the hero of my own story.
Exactly. And that brings us to another important point. The video makes aligning our emotions with our self-talk.
Okay, so it's not enough to just say the words I have to actually feel them.
Think about it this way. Imagine you're trying to convince someone that you're really excited about something, but you're saying it in a monotone voice with a bored expression. Do you think they would believe you?
Probably not.
It's the same with self-talk.
Yeah.
If you're telling yourself, I am confident, but you're slouching and feeling insecure, your brain is not going to buy it.
So I have to really embody that feeling of confidence, like stand up straight, smile, and really feel that energy surge through me.
Precisely, the more you can align your emotions with your positive self-talk, the more powerful and effective it becomes.
This is all so fascinating.
Yeah.
It's making me realize how much power I have over my own thoughts and ultimately my own reality.
Right.
But I imagine this is something that takes a lot of practice, right? I mean, our brains are pretty good at sticking to those well-worn paths of negative thinking.
You're absolutely right. It's like building a muscle. The more you practice catching those negative thoughts and replacing them with positive ones, the stronger those new neural pathways become.
So it's okay if I slip up sometimes.
Of course.
Like if I have a bad day and I fall back into old patterns of self-doubt.
Absolutely. The key is to be kind to yourself. Acknowledge those slip-ups and just keep practicing. The video stresses that celebrating even the smallest wins is crucial.
So if I catch myself thinking I can do this instead of I can't,
Yeah.
that's a win worth celebrating.
Exactly. It's like giving your brain a high five for doing something new and challenging, and those small wins help solidify those positive changes that you're making.
This is really making me think differently about how I talk to myself. It's like I have the power to choose a new soundtrack for my life, one that's full of positivity and possibility. But I'm curious to know more about how we can apply these ideas to like specific areas of our lives. Like how can self-talk help me improve my relationships, manage stress better, or achieve my goals?
That's a great question, and that's exactly what we're going to delve into in the next part of our deep dive. Welcome back to the deep dive. Before we move on, I'd like to add one more thought about celebrating those small wins.
Oh, absolutely. It's like giving ourselves a little pat on the back for making progress, right?
Exactly. It reinforces those positive neural pathways and makes it more likely that we'll continue making those positive choices.
Okay, so now I'm really curious about how all of this self-talk stuff can play out in like different parts of our lives.
Yeah.
You know, the video mentioned relationships, stress management, and achieving goals. Where should we start?
Let's start with relationships. Think about it this way. If you're constantly criticizing yourself and focusing on your flaws, how do you think that's going to affect the way you interact with others?
I guess I'd probably be more likely to see flaws in them too, right? Or maybe be like super sensitive to any kind of criticism, even if it's meant to be constructive.
Exactly. But the video suggests that if we practice self-compassion and understanding in our own minds, we're more likely to extend that same kindness and empathy to others. It's like our inner world spills over into our outer world.
So if I'm kinder to myself, I'm more likely to be kinder to my friends, my family, everyone.
It's not a guarantee, of course, but it definitely creates a more fertile ground for positive interactions, because when you feel good about yourself, you're less likely to project your insecurities onto others.
That makes a lot of sense. Okay, so what about stress management?
Right.
I'm a pretty high-strung person,
Okay.
so I'm always looking for ways to like chill out. How can self-talk help with that?
The video suggests a really interesting technique, reframing stress as excitement.
Wait, what? How am I supposed to convince myself that a deadline looming over my head is actually exciting?
It might sound counterintuitive, but think about it this way. Both stress and excitement involve a similar physiological response. Your heart rate increases, your breathing gets faster, your senses become heightened. But the way you interpret those sensations can make a huge difference in how you experience them.
So it's like if I tell myself I'm stressed out, my body goes into panic mode.
Yeah.
But if I tell myself I'm excited, my body channels that energy into something more positive.
Exactly. It's like giving your body a different set of instructions on how to respond to that heightened state of arousal.
Wow, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I'm definitely going to try that next time I feel overwhelmed. Okay, so last but not least, let's talk about goal achievement.
Yeah.
How can I use self-talk to help me reach my goals?
The video emphasizes the importance of aligning your self-talk with your aspirations. It's about creating a mental picture of yourself already achieving that goal, feeling those emotions, and embodying that successful version of yourself.
So it's not just about saying, I'm going to get that promotion.
Right.
It's about really visualizing myself in that new role, feeling the confidence and satisfaction that comes with it.
Exactly. And the video reminds us that it's a process, not a one-time thing. It's about consistently choosing those empowering I am statements and practicing them until they become your new default mode of thinking.
I like that. It's not about being perfect. It's about progress. But what happens if I'm struggling to believe those positive statements?
Right.
What if they feel fake or forced?
That's a common experience, especially when you're first starting out. The video suggests a fascinating approach called acting as if.
Acting as if. like I'm pretending to be someone I'm not.
It's not about being fake. It's about behaving in a way that aligns with the person you want to become, even if you don't fully feel it yet.
Yeah.
Remember how we talked about our brains not always knowing the difference between what's real and what we vividly imagine?
Yeah, it's like tricking our brains into believing it's true, right?
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
So if you want to be more confident, start acting as if you're already confident. Stand tall, make eye contact, speak with conviction. The more you act in alignment with that belief, the more evidence you gather to support it, which strengthens those neural pathways and makes it easier to believe it.
That's interesting. So it's not just about what we say to ourselves, but also about how we carry ourselves and how we act. It's like a whole body experience.
Exactly. The video emphasizes that our mind and body are deeply interconnected, and that when we align our self-talk with confident body language, it creates a powerful feedback loop. It's like sending a double message to our brains. Hey, we believe in ourselves.
This is all so empowering. It's making me realize that I have a lot more control over my thoughts, my feelings, and even my physical state than I thought. But I'm curious, what about creativity? Does self-talk play a role in that too? So we were talking about creativity before.
Right.
It almost feels like creativity is this like magical thing that some people have and some people don't. But can self-talk really make a difference there?
You'd be surprised. It's easy to fall into that trap of thinking, oh, I'm just not a creative person. But the video suggests that kind of self-talk can be incredibly limiting. It's like putting up a wall between you and your creative potential.
So how can we like break down that wall? I'd love to tap into more of my creative side.
The key, as with everything else we've discussed, is to shift our self-talk. Instead of saying, I'm not creative, try something like, I am full of creative ideas. Or I am capable of finding creative solutions.
It sounds so simple, but I can see how just changing the language we use could make a big difference.
It's about giving yourself permission to be creative. And as we've learned, our brains are always listening. When we feed them positive messages about our creativity, they start to look for evidence to support those beliefs.
So instead of focusing on like past experiences where I might have felt uncreative, start noticing all the little sparks of creativity in my everyday life.
Exactly. And the more you acknowledge those sparks, the more you fan the flames of your creative fire.
I love that analogy. Okay, so we've talked about relationships, stress goals, even creativity. Are there any other areas where self-talk can have a big impact?
Virtually every area of our lives can be influenced by our self-talk, even our physical well-being.
Now that's fascinating. I wouldn't think something as tangible as my physical health could be affected by my thoughts.
Remember that mind-body connection we talked about?
Yeah.
It's a two-way street. Our thoughts and emotions can trigger physical reactions in our bodies. So if we're constantly telling ourselves, I'm always tired or I'm so out of shape, guess what? Our bodies are likely to respond accordingly.
It's like we're creating a self-fulfilling prophecy of like fatigue and poor health.
Exactly. But by consciously shifting our self-talk to something more empowering, like I am taking care of my body, or I am filled with energy and vitality, we can start to influence our physical well-being in a positive way.
So even if I'm feeling exhausted, if I keep telling myself I am energized, I might actually start to feel more energetic.
It might not happen overnight, but the more you align your thoughts and beliefs with a state of health and well-being, the more likely your body is to follow suit.
It's like giving my body permission to heal and thrive.
And this concept applies to other areas as well, like finances.
Money, really?
Yeah.
You're saying that my self-talk can influence my bank account?
Think about it. If you're constantly telling yourself, I'm bad with money, or I'll never be financially secure, you're creating a belief system that's likely to sabotage your financial success.
So those negative thoughts become like a mental block that prevents me from attracting abundance.
Exactly. But by shifting your self-talk to something more empowering, like, I am capable of managing money wisely, or I am open to new opportunities for financial abundance, you start to create a more receptive mindset for attracting wealth and prosperity.
It's like I'm changing my internal financial thermostat from scarcity to abundance.
And as we've seen, that kind of shift in mindset can have a ripple effect on every aspect of our lives.
Wow, this entire deep dive has been incredibly eye-opening. It's amazing to think that something as simple as changing the way we talk to ourselves can have such a profound impact on our reality.
It really is. And the best part is it's a skill we can all cultivate with practice.
So what's the one big takeaway you want our listeners to walk away with today?
If our brains are constantly listening, what stories are we telling ourselves without even realizing it? And what would happen if we started paying closer attention and consciously rewriting those narratives to reflect the reality we want to create? That's the real power of self-talk.